I reached day three, where I tell you the craziest story of the past 6 months and the things that are happening to me and my family and my friends while I go through a 40-day water only fast. I'm doing that for spiritual reasons. It is not for weight loss, although I have lost 7.5 pounds up to this point. Do not do this for weight loss. This is not the way to do it. There are better and more sustainable ways to do that. This is not a recommendation to do that. But I feel great. The My mental clarity has improved. My hunger has is completely manageable. I'm sleeping well. A lot of that has to do with the protocol that Harold is fasting put together, where it's water, Celtic sea salt for electrolytes, magnesium and potassium and vitamins for muscle function, and it's going great so far. This is day three, which is supposed to be notoriously one of the hardest days, and so far it's been pretty easy. But yeah, moving on to the weird stuff. So we talked about yesterday a little bit about my background with my family and who I am. Also, that I am an expert in dimethyltryptamine, which is the most powerful psychedelic on the planet. Um, I've studied it for thousands and thousands of hours. I've done it many times. I have pushed every boundary that I can with it. I absorb information with it in regards to it. I've talked with some of the biggest leaders in the world that understand DMT. Um, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm also a polymath. Um, I have a weird quirk where I absorb a lot of information, more than most, and I have a deep knowledge on a lot of different topics. And I always thought, growing up, I always thought they were. I didn't realize that they were connected. Turns out they are, and but that they're connected and is wild. But this all kind of really starting to come to a head. Bear with me, I'm gonna drink a little bit. The fasting is causing my mouth to be dry. But Danny Goler had found that if you shine a diffracted laser beam on anything under the influence of DMT, you start to see matrix style code that runs through everything. And that's you move the laser, more code is revealed. And it's everything on this planet. Everything. Um, so thank goodness Danny started posting these videos about his discovery. But at that point in time, he hadn't posted any of these symbols yet. But he had mentioned that they look like Japanese katakana. I lived in the Navy. In the Navy, I lived in Japan. I had Japanese katakana on my name tag. It's a phonetic alphabet for them that allows them to pronounce non-Japanese names or things, words. And so I knew what that was, but I also knew, being a polymath in my weird brain bank, I knew of a document that was released by a whistleblower in the mid 2000s, but it was stolen in the 1980s, that also said that the symbols on it looked like Japanese katakana. And so just that moment, I knew something was important there. So I reached out to Danny and I asked him if anybody had been able to draw them. At that point in time, they'd only had seven. They're small. They're really small, and they move throughout everything. And so they're hard. It's really hard to identify and like isolate one to be able to figure out what the shape is. When you so he sends me an email with the drawing. I got to take that drawing, I compare it to the CARET document, and out of the seven symbols, four of those symbols show up on that document over 100 times. So we've got something from the DMT space that is connecting, at least visually, to something in this reality, which is really incredible. It's like, so hundreds of people have seen the exact same symbols. This is not similar. This is exactly the same. 100% reproducible every time. Every time. Shouldn't happen. So at that point in time, though, I I felt like I made that connection. So I go on a DMT trip and I tell it, when I say it, I refer to the DMT space. Um, I tell it that think I had figured out something important and I connected all the dots in my mind. And then all of a sudden, my crown chakra explodes like boosh. extreme radiating energy as it blows out the top of my head and then goes down through my whole body. 6 months ago, I'm agnostic, and I would have told you that chakras are bullshit. Astrology is crap. Like all of this hippie stuff was just people being lazy. Uh, that's not the case. Um, this has connected so many dots. I can tell you so much about what is happening on this planet and in our bodies, and we're going to get to that as we go further down the line. But these symbols are important because the guy that released the document in the 2000s was the linguist on the project, and he was brought in to specifically look at those symbols and see if he could figure it out. And he wrote a long letter along with the document that he released. Go look it up; it's fascinating. People have tried to debunk it; those have all kind of fallen flat on their face. And I'll spar anybody that wants to go toe to toe with me on that. But there are major breakthroughs that have come from this. And I'm going to tell you more and more about it every day. This is enormous information in itself, so what we're talking about today. But this is probably the most boring part of the story, is that we have like laser matrix style code running through everything that you can see under the influence of a psychedelic, that we have recently also found out prior to that the more you have in you, the more you are connected to consciousness. If those symbols, the linguist that released this document said that if they found that if they put those symbols in the right order, in the right condition, they could place it on the table and make a table dance. So these symbols aren't something you just read; they have function, and it looks like extreme function. You see these things on these mechanical parts, on these craft, and you start seeing these symbols on these new whistleblowers. This is important information. But like I said, this important information pales in comparison to what we are discovering now, and I'm going to tell you about in the future. But continue to stay along. I am going to blow your minds. Some of you are going to think I'm crazy, and that's okay. Keep watching, because at some point you're going to realize that the stuff that I'm talking about is you're going to start hearing it around you're already starting to hear it around podcasts and news and all that stuff. The world is changing, and I'm going to show you and explain to you what is happening. And we figured it out in the weirdest way possible, in the most incredible way possible. But it's world changing stuff. I hope you stick around. I know these are probably going to get a little long, but hopefully they're entertaining and fascinating enough to keep your interest. And I encourage you to continue with me on this journey. So hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. I'll talk to you then.